Welcome everyone to the Geo Scheduling Call Friday afternoon edition. This time with wonderful weather in Germany and Belgium. I'm not sure about the UK, but my hopes are relatively low.
It's very British weather in the
British
UK.
weather. Yeah, we are going to do some scheduling and looking at the billboard and talking about upcoming discovery efforts of the Geo team. So yeah, Rachel, you wanna take us to the board?
Here we go. I'm organized today. It's already on its own tab, in its own window, and here it is. Hooray! Wow, we did great. When did we have this last meeting? Was this on Friday or was this on Monday, the last one?
It was on Monday.
We've done very well since Monday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get cracking. So, high rate of cannot obtain exclusive lease messages.
Yeah, I think Valery did an investigation on it. And I think there's nothing that we can do on this issue right now. But he pointed to two follow-up issues that could be worked on. And the first one, I think, is not in our domain. The second one is. So I took the liberty of actually sort of shortcutting it so we can improve the logging of our sync services. Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to point out that looking at something that was filed as a bug and then closing it because there is nothing to do is also extremely valuable, because it shortens our backlog and makes it clear that this is not something relevant anymore. So it is actually really, really nice to see.
So for anyone who is watching this after the fact, and for both of you that are on the call, I'm actually going through a process at the moment to try and identify pieces of work where no MR is created and why. Because throughput is one way of measuring stuff that gets added to the product, but I feel that it's not correctly reflecting sometimes when we have research items, POCs, bugs that don't surface. So when you see later on that this has a strange label associated to it, that's what I'm trying to do this afternoon. So, but I agree, like just having gone through this and determining what needs to be done next and that we can close this issue, I still think is exceptionally valuable.
I agree.
All right. I was so happy to wake up and see that this was done. Devin and Ash took care of this yesterday, which is great. Sorry, I just saw your chat. It's bounced up. I just want to see what's in the chat. Oh, wave.
We're
Yes.
joined by Gabriel.
Yes. So yes, Ash and Devin have got this done, which is wonderful.
Yeah, my only question is, can I actually look at anything here? Not really, right? It's like I try to.
So I put the message on the channel this morning that said I can't access this, and then Tone said, "Try this," and yes, you can. So I will try that, and then hopefully I will be able to. It was the link with the Bastion.
Okay.
Yeah, Tone can log in. So I just need to actually read the instructions properly, and then I'll probably be able to log in too.
Cool.
Okay, done. Next one. Checkpoint meeting with infrastructure. So I think that with all of the meetings we've had with infrastructure, we can mark this as closed because there's nothing further we need to do here. We've got the resources we need. We have the people we need. This is done.
I think that's exactly the comment that I left in the morning because I thought there's no need. Let's just close it.
Yeah. So this is the Terraform work is done. So this can get closed. Done. Okay. Expose the API for design repos. So this was the backend version of the change to the screen to expose the data out so that the Zach could consume it to the front end. And this is now done.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just refreshing the screen so that I can move further down without having to scroll down. Right, background migration. This was the one where there was a lot of stuff getting put into the logs.
Yeah, and I think
Custom had
it's,
reported.
yeah, I think this is closed by yeah, like a couple hours ago. I don't think there's technically any new code. I think it's just adding something back. But I'm really happy to see this see this done, because this was blocking a couple of our users from migrating, and they had asked a little while ago that for us to look into it, and we did, and so that should work.
Okay, before we take the labels off here, is there anything that you want to put in a release note for this because it was customer facing?
You can put it in verification, and I will think about it, because it's a very special situation where I think the customer downgraded from an enterprise to a community edition, and this is sort of cleaning up the logs. So I'm not sure if that needs to be in the release post, but I'll think about it.
Because it's quite specific.
Yeah, it's very specific.
Sorry, Gabriel, I'm just putting that there so that I don't forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you said put this in verification and you think about it.
Yep. I need to write the release post drafts by Monday, I believe. So I'll think about it soon.
There you go. Oh, but then I need to reopen it as well. Or else it's going to show enclosed forever. Okay. The check is cluttered. Okay. Oh, this was all. It's not a secondary node stuff. Yeah. And Ash took care of it. Hey.
Yeah. No, I think actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think the same goes here. I would like to maybe write a very small release post item saying like, hey, we improved the user experience for this command. Very small.
This was Valerie and Ash. Sorry, it wasn't just Ash. And okay, that's done. Right. But those have both disappeared because I took the active label off.
I will remember. We don't need to do it now.
Okay, I remember the one, but I can't remember what the other one was called. I'm just thinking of a word. I don't know how I'll find it.
Like it had like prune something in it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, right. In review, is this 32367? I'm just checking here. Okay, it's a different one from what Gabriel had mentioned on the chat. Okay, this one's in review. This was looking at the failed migrations when running this in prod, and that's the new issue that he's referenced, so we can talk about that separately. And then there's a merge request here. That's currently working on with Douglas. So there's one more question to understand, and okay, so that's in review. I'll leave that there. And HA upgrade documentation. Where is this at the moment? The MR was closed, was merged, this can be closed.
No, I think this is open because I need to write a release post item. That's the only thing that is outstanding. You're looking at the verification.
Oh, I'm in the wrong column, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. Upgrade from 0 to 1, and this was the one that was in distribution. And then...
Yeah, I think we wanted to give them a little bit of time to respond to this on Monday, but nothing has happened, so maybe we should follow up. So
okay.
like,
should I just say, yeah, since there's been no activity and it looks like, and we verified this, we're going to close it?
No, I don't think we should close it. We should just ask them, is there anything else you need from us here, so that we can actually, like if they require anything else, because I don't know. I've done one thing, it worked.
Right, so in blocked, so this verification of design repos is still blocked on the POC.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about the POC when we get to the scheduling column. So
that sounds good.
I'll leave that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then test the upgrade about migrating LFS objects to their own registry table. Right, I remember putting this in blocked myself. So this is because we mustn't forget to do this when we have the 12.5 installation. Okay. We don't currently have the 12.5 installation because it's still early in the month, so I'm going to just leave this for now.
That's fine.
Okay. In dev, 14 items. Okay. Categorize data types for Geo. So yes, after a little bit of back and forth, yes, adding it to the main documentation is incorrect, I think. Having this clarity is true. Okay, so, and Gabriel's taking a look at this.
Yep.
Okay, great. Job artifacts. Where are we with this? Okay, we apply the patches and things seem to be working. They're going to follow up on their side, but we didn't see it progress on the call.
We did.
We did see it progress on the call. Sorry, that's why I read things twice.
Yeah.
I did see things progress on the call.
So I'm not sure. I think this is maybe something that we should actually move into in review, because my understanding is that the changes here are merged and have been applied as a patch for a customer. And once we can clearly establish that now everything is done, there's nothing more to do here, I think. But that's maybe something to confirm with Douglas.
Well, I'm just going to do this, and then because we aren't actively doing anything right now, we're waiting for them to come back, and if they decide that there's more, we can move it back into.
Yeah. Yes, but if Douglas is listening, or Eric, I mean Tone is listening, I think this is. We have a retro item on it as well, but I think here the solution was not easy. So I'm quite happy that we applied the patches for the customer, and I hope that this is resolved. Yeah, so thanks everyone.
Okay, fix foreign data tables on reconfigure. Okay, there's one MR, and it's with the maintainer. I really like this, like having the status of the MR available here. But that's great. Okay, that's with the maintainer, so that's fine. Minimize steps to run the upgrade without the post-deployment migrations. There are 2 MRs.
It's very exciting.
And Tone is active on this 2 days ago, so we can leave that. Enable Postgres for staging. Woohoo! Ash has just picked this up. I know that it would have only been today, so I don't think we need to go further into that. And then also to upgrade the runbooks for staging. So I think there's 2. Okay, then Zach's working on exposing the sync information for the design repos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fabian, but this is the one that's going to land up in the verification column because that's when you want to put the release note on.
That's right. And I think, the question is, and we need to talk about that maybe afterwards as well, is we are blocked on some of the verification for design repositories, but can we ship design repository support for Geo without that in 12.5?
Well, I'd say since we're doing it, since we're iterating, let's do it. And
yes.
then
I'm inclined to agree because we are already not verifying quite a few other things and have taken that decision before. So in that regard, that's maybe the first iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next one, monitoring for staging. I read this one before the call. I know that Mike is active on it and has asked some questions of Jav and Stan. So
and it's a big shout out. That actually like made my morning yesterday morning when I saw that, because I know that that issue didn't have a lot of definition, and it's discovery heavy. But it was really great to see that it was picked up and sort of moved forward, because honestly I didn't know what could be done from my end there, and so I'm very pleased to see it.
And I'm also, I hadn't put much detail because I wasn't sure what we would actually land up with on staging once Ash and Devon were finished with what they were up to. So yeah, that's been a very ambiguous one. I'm glad that that's moving forward. Okay. For the 3 testing ones, which are these 3, I've pinged Jenny just to find out where we're at and what's required next. She's put an update on this one, just so that we can see if there's anything we can do to help move forward.
Yeah,
also,
I think that's...
these 2 are actively in development either, so that's why I've put a comment on both of those asking if it's actually active right now or if it's actually ready for development.
I think that's great, because I spoke with Josh yesterday, and I think we are going to do, I think, a lot more active testing and spinning up Geo in various testing scenarios, right? And work on the provisioner, I think, is not unimportant for this, as in making that easier. And I don't fully know at this moment in time what the status there is, but I
also have a meeting with Stephen next Friday to talk about that. So
yeah, because I'm a little bit inclined. We have many other things that we need to do, but if this is taking off and we can help, then it is probably the right thing to help, right? To do it. Yeah.
Okay, this one. So, I went through this with both Valerie and Mike, or maybe it was just Mike, talking about what this issue is actually looking for and what we're going to get out of this. And there seems to be a lot of debate as to what the right thing to do here is. But when thinking about the problem itself and the impact that exists, it's not ideal that a sysadmin has to go in and do something manually, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, so I thought, I think I messed up the labels. My understanding of this is that with the other changes that Mike has made, and now refreshing the foreign data wrapper tables is possible via a simple reconfigure. And while that is another manual step, I think that is much more appropriate for a sysadmin compared to having to do this other manual rake task, even though reconfigure did some of those in the background, but it wasn't really working. So my suggestion was to say, okay, this is not great, but it is it's sort of another iteration, and it's not actually that important at this moment in time. So I moved it to the backlog, and I'm happy to leave it as is, because I don't think it's the most important thing to do. And I also moved it out of the epic that I want to close, because I think that this can just be a follow-up item at some point in the future. And so we shouldn't hang ourselves like up on this and spend a lot of time.
Can I add some context here?
Yeah,
sure.
I think I would consider this to be done because of the changes. So it's not really troublesome or cumbersome thing to do anymore. Like, it doesn't require you to hack with cache and this kind of stuff. It's just a reconfigure, which is part of the flow of upgrading and reconfiguring GitLab itself. I would say that it's acceptable fix here, but trying to think it in a different way. What we were actually trying to do with the original proposal kinds of require us to have console working in advance, because the whole thing is that we don't have this component that can oversee the whole cluster, that can know the state of each component that is part of the cluster, and that can do this kind of health check or health state probing on each one of the components, and then do something about it if it's not green, fix or repair, etc. So we don't have the feature to actually fix this. So I would say that the current fix is good enough.
Well, I would say that this specific proposal was about automating the piece that Mike has now done in terms of making it easier to do at all. But there is also a proof of concept idea that's being floated about an option where we might be able to get rid of the foreign tables entirely. So I would be inclined to either just put this on the backlog and take the in-dev label out, or to close it. But Fabian, I think closing it is your call as to if this is a feature that would still be, if we keep the foreign tables, if you still want to be able to do this automatically. But what I'm going to suggest is that we don't totally debate that now. At the very least, it needs to come out of the active column and in dev and back into somewhere on your boards for that decision. So what would you recommend?
I think that was exactly the decision I already took, but forgot to take the tables off. So in that regard.
So where's the workflow going?
Like just keep it open and put it into Geo triage, and we can, like, we're not going to lose the context. I'm going to revisit it eventually. But I think it's exactly like it is said. It's not something that we need to worry about anymore.
Okay.
At this moment.
Okay. Right. Drops but cannot recreate the database.
Yeah, this was, we were running a little bit short on items, and I just dropped in some bugs. Technical debt.
Well, Valeri's on that, and the last one, I know Zach's on that, moving the settings around. Okay, that concludes what is currently in progress. I think that the next portion is going to be the scheduling portion, which is on the scheduling board itself. So
yep.
Fabian, shall I swap over to you?
Yes.
Do you have control now?
Yeah, I do. I just need to close some tabs, I think.
Okay, I'm just adding the item that Gabriel has posted into the scheduling board. I'm just checking that it's showing up there.
Okay, let me refresh the board. Okay. This is right. So I will do something a tiny bit different because I've added things here to the column that I would like to schedule, but I think I should provide a little bit more context. So we are in an interesting situation where essentially we are almost finished with quite a few things, and we are starting up work on quite a few other things. And that's great and exciting, but it also means that there is, like, some of the items we can work on are not necessarily 100% perfectly defined yet. And I actually think we should spend some more time, for example, like doing a little bit of discovery in some instances in order to understand if we are doing the right thing or not first before diving into the solutions. So I have actually created a few issues for that discovery work. We've had good success with that, for example, with tone in the upgrade space, where we had to start doing something and investigating something, and it was complex, and so we needed to sort of like try things out first. And so the first thing I would like to talk about is related to disaster recovery. And the second thing that we can talk about is then the POC. And I know that Rachel has some questions for the sort of self-service framework. And so we are starting to look at improvements to disaster recovery. And as part of those improvements to our disaster recovery efforts, I am proposing that we're going to focus on improving support for failed planovers. It's certainly Friday. Great mix-up. Planned failovers. So the reason for this is that I think many, like it's sort of the first step to better disaster recovery, because you will need to test this. You have more control over what you're trying to accomplish. Planned failovers also sometimes happen for migration purposes. So I think this is a good sort of starting point for us to start thinking about the next steps and next iterations in the disaster recovery space. And so I've started setting up this epic in order to track the work here. And so the first thing is here that I would like to actually do is I will schedule some customer interviews for problem validation that people are obviously welcome to join, just to make sure that they actually agree with some of those directions that we're going to take. But there are other activities, and those are on the scheduling board. But on a high level, I think there are two tasks that we should perform. One is to spin up a Geo HA cluster and then perform a planned failover and see specifically, if anything has changed in the past, right? The problems we encounter, look at the documentation, record these outcomes, and that will give us a lot better understanding of, okay, at this moment in time, with the latest version of GitLab, where can we make specific improvements? I think that's going to be very valuable. The other thing is, and this is not strictly related to, well, it actually is. It's like we use Geo for this, for replicating most of the very important data, but there's other data that is actually unreplicated via Geo that needs to be transferred as well. And at the moment, we have essentially a very high-level description in the documentation that says use rsync and do some things, but it's not really clear what does that actually mean. I think we should also document quite clearly. It's like all of these other data types, how are they being backed up? What needs to happen? So that's another discovery item. And then there are two more things that are starting to kick off. And the one is highly relevant to GitLab.com. So this comes back from something that Mike and Ash brought up. At the moment, we don't have an easy way to pause, resume, or kill, let's say, replication from a primary to a secondary. And there is a little bit of discussion and debate on what we should support and what we shouldn't support. But I think this is important. The main scenario for GitLab.com is if the secondary, for whatever reason, puts a lot of stress on the primary, how can we, for example, stop that, right? The other thing is that the pause logic that we have in Geo right now, I think actually only pauses replication of repositories and files, not the database replication. And I think there needs to be a little bit of thought on how we can pause the database replication as well. How could that work? And the other thing is, and this is actually, I'm hoping to do this in a really fast turnaround. I opened a problem validation issue, and I haven't even read this, but there may be, this is the initial idea, right? It's like, hey, should we have some kind of kill switch for Geo? And I would like to get some feedback from SREs in GitLab, if this is even something that they would like, or if this is something that they would like to do on the network level, so we can validate this pretty quickly. So those are some things. The other bit, and I think this is going to be quite exciting. As part of the planned failover, and I posted that in the Geo channel earlier, many customers have actually requested a type of maintenance mode, a read-only mode for GitLab. And there are different scenarios that we need to think about. But one is essentially in a planned failover scenario where you need to migrate from one primary to the secondary, and you want to make sure that the primary doesn't accept any change anymore. So the other one is potentially related to upgrades. But this is something that would improve planned failover proceedings, I think, quite significantly. And there may be other reasons as well why people may be interested in a maintenance mode. So we could potentially tackle this from Geo as an improvement for DR, but we could also, and I use the term you use, kill more than one fly with one blow. Like provide some simple iterations that would generally help systems administrators, even if they don't use Geo. I think that's quite interesting, but that needs a little bit more breakdown. So I'm looking at those items right now, but we need to really knock out, like what is the minimal thing we can do first, because they are, I think they're quite involved features. But I have some discovery items on the board already to start with this. But for the team, I think this is something to also look at. And, like if there's interest, I think working with me quite closely in trying to like break this into more actionable small chunks. So that's the DR angle. Because this means there is not like we could schedule these things now and, say like, please do it. But I think we should spend a little bit more time breaking it into smaller pieces. I decided on the build board to also pull in a few items that are essentially dealing with technical debt, right? So for like bugs or performance improvements that were in the backlog that people can pick up in the meantime. And that gives us a really good opportunity to also, like reduce our load in that regard. And then lastly, before we go to the POC, items in here are related to activities on staging for GitLab.com. So the first one here is actually, I don't think we had that. I would love to see an architecture diagram of like how this actually looks on staging, a mermaid diagram, anything, like to visualize this a little bit more, what we're actually doing in the current setup.
So what I've done, if I've remembered to push enter on the comment, is I think I edited that issue to say it shouldn't be, initially we created that to say this is the plan for what we're going to do, but the diagram itself actually needs to be what it looks like.
Yes.
Like once it is deployed, this is what it looks like. And you know why I didn't push enter is because I think I ended up creating another issue entirely, which is to document what we did. If you go into there and go into the epic. Go into the epic itself. Sorry, I got halfway. So it says document the Geo installation on staging.gitlab.com. And I think that one, like the architecture diagram is part of that. So I think in actual fact, the architecture diagram one, we might be able to close in favor of just documenting the installation.
Cool.
Or it becomes related or, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see that issue.
No, I was, that's what I was looking at this morning is I was trying to shape this in a better way and also look at the DR one, sorry, the production one, because I was trying to think about how this fits into the disaster recovery strategy. So I was getting in touch with compliance and so I probably didn't get all the way through the thought of connecting these two issues together.
I can do this wonderful magic thing here, I think.
Hey.
Do you know who taught me this?
Who?
Tone.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't think that we should do the documentation until we're finished because we might change stuff along the way. So that ready for development, the first one there, I think that comes back.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So when looking, so what I think would be helpful here is to pull in the bug items that you think are valuable.
Yep. So like, let me pull in the things I think in the order. So the first one is I would like to get an investigation on how unreplicated data is transferred in a planned failover. Mm-hmm. So this is all of the like things we don't replicate, but that still needs to be actually replicated in different means to a secondary.
Okay.
I think that would be,
pull that one over.
I think it would be great to perform a planned failover using GeoAJ.
Yep.
Then this here is a recent activity that Mike spearheaded.
So is that the one to produce a POC?
I don't believe so.
Yes, I think it is. Just hold and go back to the description. I think it's well worth doing a two-way POC to figure out how to handle this.
Yes, yeah, that's actually right.
Hold on, but I mean, what he's saying there is it's just about how to handle the selective sync.
Yes.
But so I was talking to him, and there was another idea about how we can. It was to produce a proof of concept for the event side of things. So the event system to try and make that, well, one, make the backfilling more simple, but two, getting rid of the foreign data tables. So it sounds like there's actually two POCs about the scheduling. And if we have some space now to be doing discovery and research, I would really like to be able to do that proof of concept as well.
Okay.
However, before we get to that one, it's like, so yeah. I think it would be better to just move this one forward. Like, let's have that discussion a bit later.
Okay.
Move it back, and then we'll have the discussion a bit later. Let's go through everything else and come back to that. Because the thing is, there's a lot of proof of concepts going on right now, and I just want to try and focus down to like which are the most important ones that you need us to get done. So, yeah.
This one here, I think, is a simple, or it's a fix of how we handle the external URL. So I think that is something we can do. I think that's a bug.
Okay, next one.
Oops. And this one is. I think we handle a relative URL root incorrectly when using.
Okay.
So I went through the bug scrub board, and that sounded like a reasonable, like, small fix to do.
Okay.
So I'm pulling those over. Let me quickly look at those. I think actually. This one here, improve logging of the sync services. This is the follow-up item from Valeri.
Yes, let's pull that one in.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. So this is the framework for repositories and uploads. So we should talk about that before I pull it over.
Yeah. What is manage scheduled jobs after rename? Oh, that was... we've renamed the job, so we need to check that it's okay. This is the one that's
yes.
Yeah.
I think that is something we should. I think Gabriel made a comment here and said, like, hey, we should do sort of a two-step procedure, right? And you know, mark this for like a big change in 13, but help with the post-deployment migration to actually migrate this. And I think that's worth doing, and doing it early.
Okay.
So
then the other one, let's also just look at the hash storage testing. The issue is 35789.
Okay. By the way, like, should I just move this over as well? Or do you think we have enough already? I think
let's stop there for now, because I just want to look at this hash. I want to look at the hash storage one, and then look at the proof of concepts, and then and then I will answer that question.
Okay. It's issue number
35789. 789. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, Gabriel, that this is an easy sort of follow-up from your work on the hash storage migration?
Yes, it's actually, I would like to, as soon as I finish this one, get this other one.
Okay.
The fix is actually probably 1 or 2 lines, but what it will take extra work is adding tests for that and doing the manual test. So it's one of those cases that fixing it is easy, but testing it's a little bit harder, or takes a little bit of extra time.
Do you think 2 is still reasonable for the testing? I'm just thinking about the manual testing and the automated testing from the last hash storage piece that landed up taking quite a bit of time.
I think 2 is still, maybe we could increase one extra step here. Yeah.
Okay.
But as I'm already with like my mind into this kind of problem, it's a little bit easier.
I think we should like pragmatically take the opportunity. You have thought about it already. You're like on it.
Yeah, there's no context switching involved.
Yeah, so let's do it.
Can you also just assign that to Gabrielle as well? Because then no one else is going to pick it up.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. So
if we
concepts.
Let's close all of this.
Okay, so there are. It sounds like there's 3 proof of concepts at the moment that are vying for attention. The first one is the proof of concept that we'll be discussing on Wednesday, that I've asked Mike, Valerie, and Tone to take a first pass at, so that we have something to talk about in that meeting, which is about the self-service geo idea.
Yep.
So I've asked him to spend some time before the meeting just putting together how they think it would work, what it looks like, and then we can have a constructive discussion. And then from there, build the POC. The second proof of concept is, I was talking to Mike about foreign data tables and the idea that originally came up from Douglas about using events more to process, or using an event system to process events more than the current worker setup. And through discussions with Mike, we feel that it might be possible to eliminate the need for the foreign data tables if we do this. However, I said to Mike to hold off doing the proof of concept because it hadn't been scheduled yet, and I want to be sensitive to the fact that stuff needs to get scheduled. We don't want to just do all the things without talking about it first. And then I see there with the single source of truth issue there's a further proof of concept about the selective sync aspect of making those registry tables a single source of truth. So with that in mind, I don't see that proof of concept, the first proof of concept that I talk about here. And I was wondering, I still think that needs to be there.
It's the Geo framework for repositories and uploads is the one that we're discussing next Wednesday.
Yeah. So I think that once we've had the discussion next Wednesday and we have the clear path forward, then this one becomes in the ready for development column next week.
Yes.
Is that all right? I'm just gonna
like from my sense of priorities is that I would like that to happen quickly, because I would like to. So at the moment, because the idea of this is that we couple adding new data types to us feeling confident that we can move to a more self-service application, right?
Yeah.
And so until we validate like some of our assumptions, I'm not scheduling additional data types, but I would like to, right? And because that will keep up our velocity. So the faster we get to that, the better in my mind, because it will potentially unblock a lot of other work.
Okay, so then what we will do is, after the discussion on Wednesday, the action from that call is, this is what we're going to do about it. Mm-hmm. And then we will schedule that proof of concept for work.
Sounds great.
Okay. Then the second proof of concept is about putting an event system in. And I haven't, before the meeting, actually found the issue about it. But I wanted to know what your opinion is about picking that up.
So I thought, like, I remember, like, Valerie's thought was that the event system is kind of like, was included in the sort of Geo framework idea. But I'm not sure how possible this is, right? My concern with this is I don't know how much complexity is involved in like doing all three of those things end to end in a POC, right?
And that's why I recommended splitting them out to be separate things, because I believe that they are separate things. I think that if we decided, if for whatever reason the proof of concept that we're talking about on Wednesday doesn't go anywhere, we could still be looking at changing how the event system works on its own. I think that they are related, but they're not coupled.
No, I think that's actually, I think if that is true, which I don't know because I technically don't know, then I think you're
maybe
right.
I can add context.
Mm-hmm.
I see the event system as a follow issue after we start the framework.
Mm-hmm.
The way everything is right now, it will probably make everything more complicated to do this change, other than we create all those interfaces in the code, and then we just plug this extra event system instead of using something else. I think this is a step 2.
Okay, that helps, because then I think the natural order of doing this is we do the POC for the Geo framework, excluding the event system. We see how that works, and then as a follow-up, we look at the event system. Is that true, or can we parallelize that?
I believe that it's easier to do the event system after we have at least some minimal interfaces in place.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
It also will. Sorry, it also will help to compare both side by side.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so I'm just taking notes in the discussion call that the POC for the self-service doesn't include the event system, and we're going to do that separately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the faster we move on this, the better, because it will. I think that will give us the opportunity to resume our activities as well, and adding the things that are missing, but and moving in that direction. But I'm advocating for this because it's sort of a pre-step to a minimal viable change, right? I want to avoid us building something that actually doesn't make any sense, right? And I think my understanding from the chats I had with Valerie is that you need to kind of see this as in code, as a sort of maybe even a throwaway MR, right? And say hey, this is how this could look, have a discussion in the team. And then when that is a little bit more clear, we choose a first data source where we actually attempt this, right? Whatever that may be, and start iterating.
Yeah.
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 Would you agree with that, Gabriel?
Yes, it does make a lot of sense. Also, we're doing all those changes to also improve our velocity.
Yes.
So it has to be proved that it helps.
Yes. Yeah, because I think there are two reasons for doing it. Operationally, I would like us not to be the bottleneck, right? That's an operational concern, but also the realization that adding things in the way we are right now is too cumbersome and slow, right? And if we then propose an improved, let's say, architecture, and it turns out it is still cumbersome and slow, we're not winning on that end, right? And so, okay. That sounds very good. I think we have enough here in the pipeline to continue for the next week. And while this is happening, I will be able to put a lot more definition on, for example, the maintenance mode, the pausing replication and the DR items. So that will become more defined, more broken down, and then we can start doing that as well.
Fantastic. And also during the week, we have a call about getting started with the project about the admin UI changes as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of that. So since we've got enough between reviews in dev and ready for development, I don't think we need to schedule anymore.
No, and I have some things here that are essentially ready to be picked up as well if we run significantly low.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all for your time today. I will upload the recording and put the summary onto the channel later today once the upload's done. But yeah, thank you very much. I know some people have a hard stopper too. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We are perfectly on time.
Awesome.
I always enjoy these calls, and I hope that they bring a little bit of clarity to everyone. Like, thanks for joining, Gabriel, and thanks for joining Tone as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.